the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Chad Erickson. Great to have you with us on this Friday edition of the program. We'll be joined by Tino Pattigno a little later on. Break down NASCAR. They're taking it to the streets. Road race in Sonoma coming up this weekend. We'll preview that. David Aardsma drops by to talk to us about Major League Baseball and get a little AL-NL talk. Yankees potentially with an injury they are dealing with for Juan Soto. It's a forearm. We'll see what the MRI on that yields. Yankees playing the best baseball in the major leagues right now. And we'll also be joined by Dom Amore of the Hartford Courant, who does a great job covering the UConn Huskies men's basketball team. Thoughts with him, his reporting around the Dan Hurley situation with him, talking to the Los Angeles Lakers. Who knows? By the time we come back on Monday, he could be the next head coach of the Lakers. I mean, it's that fluid of a situation. But we start things out in the NBA, and boy, oh boy, Mavericks and Celtics game one of the NBA Finals on Thursday night. And look, I mean, the Celtics got out to a fast start. If we all thought there was a game where the Mavericks could steal one, it felt like game one was the one to get. Yes, I know the Celtics, their 2 losses in this postseason have come in game 2s, but game one, the super long layoff for the Celtics. Porzingis with his first game back, and obviously the trepidation that comes with that. Would he have his legs? You know, he looked like he was huffing and puffing a little bit, running up and down the floor. Well, he had a first half to remember in his first NBA Finals game. And as a result, the Celtics get off to a fast start. They're able to withstand a charge from the Mavericks in the third quarter of that game, and they get the win 107-89. Here's some takeaways for me on this. 2 things. 1, the Mavericks got to get more out of Kyrie Irving. Goes without saying. I mean, they cannot win this series with Kyrie Irving playing the way he played last night. What was he, 6 of 19 shooting? Something like that. He was terrible. And it wasn't like he wasn't getting his looks or getting his opportunities. Yes, the Celtics make it difficult, but Kyrie was able to find his spots. He just didn't make anything. He just couldn't make any shots. And in a make-miss league, he had way too many misses in that game. That's the first thing. They made it tough on Luka Doncic. He got his, but he wasn't the Luka that he needs to be in order. Those two combined, I mean, they've got to put up 60 to 70 points a game in order for the Mavericks to have a chance to win this series. That's problem number 1. The turnovers, that was a problem. The free throw shooting. I don't know if enough people have talked about that. Make your damn free throws. I mean, on the road in the NBA playoffs, let alone the NBA Finals, you cannot afford to play as bad. They played terrible last night. It was their worst game in 3 weeks. They were awful in that game. And still, midway through the third quarter, they're down, 6? 8? Whatever it was. They still were able to put on a run in that game to put themselves in a position in the second half to potentially go and steal this game. But simply too much Boston. And Boston couldn't have played better by the other hand. Yeah, look, Boston's going to have a portion. I don't care how good that roster is from player 1 to player 12. That team is going to have a 6 to 7 minute span at least in every game where you're going to go, oh no. And that was the third quarter last night. It was the last minute or 2 of the second quarter, but mostly the start of the third quarter was where they struggled last night. But just too much Boston. And the Mavericks will regroup. And what shocked me post-game, for a team and a group, this group, that has not been in this position before. Yes, Kyrie has been there and won, obviously, a championship. Yes, Jason Kidd as a coach has been there. And, you know, that's part of the 3-headed sort of snake that leads this team. Jason Kidd, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic. The level of calm following a Game 1 loss, when we all know the numbers. 70% of teams that win Game 1 go on to win the NBA Finals. So 7 out of every 10 times a team wins Game 1, they're going to win the NBA Finals. To me, that should be somewhat reassuring, I think. I mean, Kyrie Irving after the game, look at him. Up there at the podium, he's relaxed, grabbing the mic. Hey, all is well. Look at him holding a basketball. And you listen to him answer the questions in the postgame where he basically says, hey, I'm relaxed. Everything's fine. Now, if they come out in Game 2 and play this badly, then you're talking about a 5-game series. They come out and game. Frankly, I hate to even say this stuff because it's almost hyperbolic. It's almost hyperbolic to say this, but Game 2 is a must-win. Well, who's beating Boston? No matter what you think of Boston, who's beating Boston 4 out of 5 times? 4 times in a week and a half. And I know the Mavericks are a good team. And I know that what they've done to get to this point should instill some confidence in their fan base. But if they lose Game 2 this weekend, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. And the NBA's marquee, showcase could wind up being a dud. I thought this was going to be a great series. I thought it'd go 6 or 7 games. I picked the Mavericks. I already had people getting on me on X last night, saying, how you feeling now? After 1 game, I don't feel much of anything. But there are signs in that game. And boy, if Porzingis is what he was last night, if he could just give them 20 good minutes a game, because he was great in the first half. He was non-existent in the second half. If he gives them 20 good minutes, man, the Celtics are going to be tough to beat. I mean, Dallas has to play a perfect game, basically, if you want to talk about them upsetting the Celtics and winning this series. Boston was impressive last night. There's no getting around. Jason Tatum had a double-double, but he wasn't anything special. They got buy-in and chip-in from everybody. And now we'll wait to see what happens in Game 2 this weekend. All right, we'll focus our attention on the Dan Hurley Los Angeles Lakers coaching situation. Dom Amore from the Hartford Courant covers the Huskies. He'll join us next.
Over 13 million Americans were affected by identity theft in 2022, and the threats go way beyond just credit card fraud. Today's identity thieves can use your information in ways that are easy to miss by just monitoring accounts and credit, like opening loans, transferring home titles, even committing crimes.
Someone got my social security number, made a driver's license, and was used for criminal activity.
You can do so much with a social security number that I didn't know could happen.
They drained my bank account. It was terrifying.
You're even more vulnerable than you realize. Your information is exposed through online shopping, banking, even corporate data breaches. No wonder there's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. Only LifeLock alerts you to the widest volume of threats all in one place, like someone trying to use your social security number, open a new loan in your name, or even commit a crime in your name.
There was a big yes button and there was a big no button. I clicked, that's not me, and LifeLock took it from there.
If you become a victim of identity theft, a dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will be assigned to your case and work to fix the issue on your behalf.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All LifeLock members are backed by the LifeLock $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds, personal expenses, and coverage for lawyers and experts up to $1 million. It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity. With LifeLock, it's easy to help protect yourself.
I will be with LifeLock forever.
Join the millions of people already protected by LifeLock. And for a limited time, save 25% on your first year with promo code 25TV. All plans include a 60-day money-back guarantee. Call 800-710-7531 or visit lifelock.com/25TV to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
You learn pretty fast that there are no shortcuts in racing or in life. One of my first attempts to deal with my own hair loss was a literal shortcut. Thankfully, my wife found Hair Club. I was shocked the Hair Club had virtually every solution possible. If I had known about Hair Club sooner, I never would have tried any of those overhyped advertised solutions. You can get your own free personalized consultation with a hair loss expert and be on your way to the finish line in no time. Call now.
Save 20% on select solutions using promo code Frankie. Call 800-319-5588.
Great to have you with us on this Friday edition of Sports Wrap. We'll be joined by former big league reliever David Aardsma, our MLB analyst. He'll hang out with us coming up in about 10 minutes, get some thoughts with him around the week in baseball. But let's say hello to another guy that loves baseball, by the way. I could talk baseball with him all day. Just sit here and argue about Hall of Famers. Dom Amore of the Hartford Courant does a terrific job. He's actually a Hall of Fame voter for for the Baseball Hall of Fame. But his big beat right now is UConn men's basketball. And boy, what a wild time to be covering this team, Dom, with this crazy story that emerged on Thursday morning of Dan Hurley. After we all thought it was going to be J.J. Redick that was the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, we learned that it's Dan Hurley that's the object of the Lakers' affection. Give me your latest reporting around what has been a wild, 24 to 48 hours.
Well, it's the gut feeling on the part of a lot of people at UConn is that he's going to stay, that he doesn't really want to leave, and that he might have his misgivings about going into this situation. And that if you've been around Dan Hurley, you know that he is more sensitive and he worries more and worries, in fact, way too much about what other people think. So I think, believe it or not, naive as it may sound, he may actually just not want to leave the players that he's made promises to and brought into UConn just recently, leave them high and dry. So I don't think it's anywhere near a done deal or a given that he's going to go to LA. I think he's going to go and feel it, but I think he owes it to himself to explore it and see if it's a fit. And so I really think he's right on the fence here, 50-50. I think if he hears something that he really falls in love with in LA, which is possible, he's on his way there now if he's not there already, he'll go. But I think if there's anything that gives him any kind of queasiness about what he'd be walking into, I think he stays, because I think he's going to make enough money at UConn to where neither he nor his children or grandchildren ever have to worry about money again. It would just be that much more if he goes to LA, and he could have doubled his money if he went to Kentucky after the season.
I feel like if he's going to leave, they're not letting him get out of LA without a deal being done. Yeah. I think if he comes back without a deal, I think he's staying. And I think that's absolutely true. And I felt like from the moment this story emerged that some of this was a leverage play for him because he wants to get this new deal done with UConn as well. Am I wrong?
Yes. No, you're not wrong. You're not the only person who suspects that. I do think that's part of it. Because, it's not just salary at UConn. He's very concerned about where they're going to, when the revenue sharing comes in, where's UConn going to get up to $20 million to distribute. He's concerned about the future of college basketball, and he's looking for some guarantees at UConn, not only financially for him and his assistants, but also that some type of guarantees that he's going to have the tools to compete, to continue to compete. I think he probably worries too much about that. But that is a concern, and I think that's something UConn can only do so much about. But I do think leverage on his part is part of it, and I also think that the Lakers want to maybe show LeBron James that, hey, we tried to get Dan Hurley. We pull out all the stops to get him, and maybe there's also a feeling with the ownership there that, hey, before we jump on this J.J. Redick thing, let's leave no stone unturned. So I think there could be some leverage plays and show plays around it because, and you probably follow the NBA closer than I do, Jason. If he were the front runner and they were going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at Dan Hurley, why didn't they do it a month ago? They're a month into their search.
Yeah. That's why this whole story is just bizarre. It almost felt like, to me, some of this was almost a little bit of gamesmanship on both sides, where it's Hurley trying to get UConn to the table on this contract, and the Lakers kind of trying to massage the situation with Redick and using Hurley to do that. And I don't think anybody loses in that deal, by the way.
No. And you know what else is bizarre about it, too? Redick is on TV. He's not coaching another team. He's not working for another team. So if he were going to take the job and wants the job and they want him, why not just take it and go? ESPN's got 50 people they could use to fill in if he leaves. And he could take the job and stay and do the finals and then go. So I'm not sure why there's any conflict with him not wanting to take the job.
Let's play this the other way. Let's say he does. Let's say they get him. Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka, that they get this thing done. That they bring in LeBron and just wow him. And he's like, my God, I got a chance to coach arguably the greatest player of this generation. I have a chance to coach the Lakers. It's going to be 5 or 6 year deal. And if they get rid of me after 2, I've got this generational wealth. But let's take all that. What is the UConn plan? Because the coaching carousel is over. The game of musical chairs is done. Everybody's got their seats. Would they have to hire from within in that scenario?
I don't think, Jason, that they would have any choice on June the 7th, but to hire from within. I don't see them going out and trying and getting an established coach from a high major program. So if they don't hire from within,
Brad Stevens? Brad Stevens is right up the road.
Well, would he want to do it? I don't know. But first of all, a lot of these guys, if you go to UConn, you're following Dan Hurley after 2 championships, and maybe the whole roster walks out the door.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
So you can't do anything but look bad and get abused. So it's going to be you could hire a coach who's available, who's unemployed, or maybe somebody from a mid-major who could move up. But I think the idea that I think all UConn would do by trying to get Bruce Pearl, who's been mentioned, or Sean Smart, or anybody like that, is get somebody else a raise. If I had to bet and guess, which I assume is why I'm on here, is to guess.
Sure.
I would guess that Luke Murray goes with Hurley to the Lakers because they want the offensive mastermind with him. And Kamani Young, the associate head coach at UConn, would take over. He would have the best chance of keeping the roster intact, having some continuity, wouldn't cost, obviously, a lot of money, first opportunity, and he would be somebody, you wouldn't have to give him a 10-year contract. I mean, if things didn't work out, you could make a change, down the road. It wouldn't be surprised if, again, the timing isn't good because of the class he has coming in at Rutgers, but I always think of Steve Peichel as being the guy who's destined to one day coach at UConn. But I would say if Dan Hurley leaves on June the 7th, 8th, June 9th, June 10th, they're just not going to have any choice but to stay within.
Dom Amore, terrific work, Hartford Courant. Always appreciate it, my friend. I'm sure we'll follow up next week. Thank you.
All right, you got it. Thanks, Jason.
This Friday edition of Sports Wrap continues. Do a couple of baseball segments today on the show. What do you say? Bring in David Aardsma, who's nodding his head in approval.
Yes, baseball.
You can talk about anything, though.
I get my head around. I love it. I love the sports. I love sports. I've always have. But baseball, it's different in your heart.
I got the tennis on. I've been watching. I'm watching the French Open right now. Over at Roland Garros. See, I lost you. I said tennis, and that was the end, huh?
I don't mind tennis. I just don't care until we get to the semis.
Well, this is the semis. It's Alcaraz and Sinner in the semis, but my horse isn't winning. Sinner.
I love tennis. How the conditions completely change for the tournament. Yes. I love you go down to Australia. The court's different, and you go to Wimbledon, grass. What are you doing here? And then you go to clay court. That's what I love about tennis is They have to be good at everything.
I'm gonna do a call. One of these days on the show, I want to do this. I really want to do like a roundtable discussion with the former athletes I'm friends with that come on the show. Like, have Nick Ferguson, who's the former NFL safety, who comes on the show. Patrick McEnroe, of course, the brother of John, who played on the ATP tour for a number of years. One of these days I want to do a roundtable on the show and just have the three of you guys and just sit here and watch. And just sit here and go. We'll just watch it go bing, 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 bong, bing, and watch you guys go back and forth on sports stories.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that one of these days. So let's talk about the Yankees, because they've got themselves a bit of an issue with Juan Soto. Now, nobody really knows. He says it doesn't hurt when he throws. He says it doesn't hurt when he swings the bat. He says it's just some soreness. It's been going on for a week and a half to 2 weeks. I'm not asking you to put a doctor's hat on. You know what? Screw it. I am. Put on a doctor's hat. I mean, you've played with enough guys. These things happen. Could it just be general soreness? You shut him down for a couple of weeks?
I am an optimist at heart, and I can say yes. This stuff doesn't just hurt randomly, and when you throw or you swing, it doesn't hurt, and then you're just hanging out watching TV, I guess, eating dinner, it hurts. I can't imagine when he's swinging a bat and that form is rolling over at the very end of the swing, and you're pronating into, after that swing, or you're throwing and it's pronating, that something isn't flaring up. There is something there. I think that is a very nice way of Juan Soto and the Yankees saying, hey, nothing to really worry about, but behind the scenes, we have to take care of something. It's been bothering for a couple weeks. And it just, to me, it seems the timing is very interesting. You're about to play the best team in baseball. We think on
stop
paper,
it. The Yankees are the best team in baseball.
The best two teams in baseball on paper. Right? Like the top three on both of these teams at the OPS, and historically, these teams are historic in some of the things they do. Don't get me wrong. The Phillies are right there. There's some other teams that they can play with them.
Guardians. Yeah.
But they've got no competition in the West. The East, I mean, the Yankees are just running with this thing. But you're about to play a huge series, and that's when you shut it down. I think that's smart, because they know he's going to try to push it harder, try to go, but there's no way Juan Soto is shutting himself down unless it's really bothering him.
I wonder if they DH him. I wonder if the MRI shows nothing. If the MRI comes back clear, I wonder if they just DH him for the next week to 10 days or something like that. Because if he's still able to swing the bat and everything, and the MRI is clean, and it's just inflammation of some kind, maybe you would just DH him. Aaron Judge is on one of those runs right now where he could just carry a team. We saw that through the month of May. And look, bring it back to your strong point here, and that's pitching. I mean, they are what they do from a pitching standpoint, from the first guy in the rotation in Luis Gil to the last guy in the bullpen. It's just hard to argue with how anybody's beating. If you told me right now, Yankees in a 7-game series against anybody, who's beating them? I mean, they're that good right now. Who's beating them right 4 times in 7 games?
Right now, I don't see it. I don't see a hole on this team. Juan Soto's going out. That's going to be interesting to see how this lineup, because that's the first time we're going to see the lineup without Juan Soto, for an extended period of time. And so this is going to be really interesting to see how they move, see how they change, who's going to step up, who's going to be that difference maker. A lot of people talk about, it's obviously Juan Soto, but Alex Verdugo's given them this ability too. I think that allows guys like Volpe, guys like, Rizzo, who, yes, has had times where he's struggling and stuff, to relax a little bit. And then Soto comes in and just kind of takes the whole world on his shoulders and goes. So it's the first time without him. But man, that lineup, that rotation right now is just ridiculous. And they don't even have the Cy Young winner yet, who's getting really close to being in that lineup or in that rotation. And that bullpen has been locked down. I can see them still going out and making changes in the bullpen, adding an arm or two, maybe adding that just career 8th inning guy that knows how to shut down stuff, get it to the closer, to Clay Holmes. I could see them still adding there in that bullpen, but I don't see them what else are they going to do?
No, I don't see anybody really that's able to slow down this team. The one thing I will say, though, is much like last year, remember when Tampa Bay got off to this fantastic start in the AL East? And even though they were red hot, they looked in the rearview mirror and Baltimore was a game back or 2 games back, and they hung around all season long. It feels like the Yankees and Orioles is that similar dynamic where, yeah, the Yankees are off to this crazy start, but you look in your rearview mirror and they're just sitting there, the Orioles saying, hi, we're still right here. We just beat you 2 out of 3 games in Baltimore, or 3 out of 4 games in Baltimore, whatever it was. Baltimore's not going anywhere.
No, and they have the pieces. Again, they have the same type of thing. They've got the pieces in the lineup. I actually like their lineup better from a 1 through 9 standpoint. I think it is more complete, and I think they have pieces that they can bring up that are more complete to that lineup once they get ready, ready for the big leagues. But from a rotation standpoint and from a bullpen standpoint, I don't think they stand on the same ground as the Yankees right now, but they are not going anywhere. They're a good team. They had last year, the best thing that ever happened to them was to lose in the playoffs, which gives them that confidence and that hunger that they can get there. And now they want to succeed, go past that point. But the Orioles are not going anywhere, and they're not going anywhere for a long time.
No, that team's going to be good for a very long time. And frankly, I mean, you go and look what the Yankees have put together. It feels like they're going to be good for a long time too. Luis Gil is certainly something special. We could have spent a whole segment just talking about what Luis Gil has done. What an amazing story that has become. Hanging out with David Aardsma joins us here on Sports Wrap. We'll come back, get some more thoughts with him on everything going on around Major League Baseball. We'll get in some National League conversations. He's a big Paul Skenes fan, much like Sam Yarnell, so see what he has to say about the start for Skenes, his most recent outing against Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers, and a whole bunch more. All right, we continue on this Friday with Major League Baseball conversation. Our friend David Aardsma hanging out with us on the show. On X at the DA53. I hear he gives good baseball pitching lessons too.
Yes.
Yeah?
Love it. I love the shout out on that. Come on, sign it up. Let's go.
Anybody needs pitching lessons, go and look them up. Especially we're on in the Phoenix market. So if anybody needs some pitching lessons, what's it called? Top Velo?
Top Velocity Pro.
Velocity Pro. There you go. Top Velocity Pro. If you want to turn your son into the next Nolan Ryan. Or the next David Aardsma. You could just be the next David Aardsma and spend 10 years in the major leagues.
I actually had somebody an older man who wanted to just pitch in an adult league. Like, let's go, man. Let's do this.
What? Really?
Yeah, it was great. His whole dream. It was just the pitch by the end of the season to help his team. And he was so frustrated with how bad his team's pitching was. I was like, dude, let's go. And he ended up pitching 3 innings, gave up 2 runs. He was the happiest. It's he never played again after that. He was just so happy.
My goal was to play adult baseball after the age of 40 and stuff, and my body just ain't gonna allow it. And I pitched when I was younger. My right shoulder is like shredded cheese right now. I don't think there's much left for me to work with. Yeah, I always said though, if I knew then what I know now about hitting and stuff like that, if I could go back to my younger self and have the knowledge that I had now of mechanics and things like that, I'd be all right. I could probably be okay because I wasn't much of a hitter when I was growing up. I was a pitcher and a fielder and all that stuff. David, I want to get your thoughts on Paul Skenes because his start has been nothing short of fantastic. But the one thing I asked, and I sent you a text on this week, because as I watch him, I see a thrower more than a pitcher right now. I just see a guy up there firing 101, 102, 100 at Shohei Ohtani, and eventually Ohtani, took him yard. I see more of a thrower as opposed to a pitcher. You can evolve into a pitcher, and that will come with time. But am I wrong in sort of how I analyze it?
No, I actually think you're right in from what we know as a pitcher, what we're watching, what we're generally, whenever you throw the word, hey, what's pitching? We go Greg Maddux. he is not Greg Maddoxing anything up there. He is throwing, but to Paul Skenes, he is pitching. And that is to his stuff. Remember, we always got to think of pitching as to your own stuff. Mm-hmm. When you've got 101 in your back pocket and you can throw it not just like a couple times, but consistently all the time, and it's just there, that to me is pitching. Pitching, let's break it down, man. Pitching is getting outs. Don't even mess around with anything else. Just get outs. And that is what he is doing at an incredible rate. He's got a 1 whip right now, 27 innings pitched, only 6 walks. He's striking out 38. So to me, that is pitching. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be pretty. Just get out. And he's getting outs, and he's getting outs quickly when he can. And he's getting out of jams. Like, you see him getting into trouble and then getting out of it. So at the end of the day, pitching is getting outs, putting your team in a position to win. And right now he's 3-0 with a 3 ERA and doing well.
They're dead last in the NL Central right now, the Pirates at 29-33, 7 games behind the Brewers out there in the AL Central. They haven't been dreadful, but they're just, they're in a division where there's a lot of parity. And I mean, the difference between them and second place right now is 1 loss.
Yes.
The difference between second and last. Yeah, because the Cubs are 31 and 32.
In the NL East.
Yeah.
They'd be right behind the Braves.
It's nuts. But let me ask you, if you are that organization, given his value, are they shutting him down regardless of where they are at some point in August? Are they shutting him down because of an innings count and trying to monitor what he does? And what does the research show us about that? Because the Yankees are going through something similar with Luis Gil, who I don't think's ever thrown more than like 105 innings in a season. He's going to have to throw 200 for him this year. They ain't shutting him down. What do you do in that situation?
One of the interesting things is we've talked about this on the show about the Yankees. They might have to move to a 6-man rotation, right? Once Garrett Cole comes back, you got to put him somewhere. You got the Gil situation.
Schmidt's out. So, I mean, Schmidt's out for a while. So
for a while. Okay. When we were talking about this before, what do you do with a 5-man? And when we weren't expecting Schmidt to be out. So you also have Jared Jones, who is like, let's not forget this is a dude too. You also have Falter, who is a guy, right? These are all guys that are absolute studs. Mitch Keller is the salty vet, and he's got 4 years, right? It's not like he's like this crazy 10-year veteran.
Yeah.
I don't see them shutting any of them down just for the sake of shutting them down, but I do see them pitching limits as far as innings and games, stressful innings. They're going to try to limit it in different ways. They're not going to let him go 9 and 9 and 9 like Justin Verlander out there, 4 years ago. They're going to sit back and say, okay, instead of throwing that extra inning, can we cut him an inning here? Can we stop an inning when it gets really stressful and bring in a reliever and limit the innings in that way to get them the outs, get them the outings, get them the starts. So get into some stressful situations and then get them out of it to save the arm. So they're going to have an issue because they've got a lot of guys that they're going to do this with. I wouldn't mind seeing them even go to a 6-man in August or September, just to limit the amount of starts. I don't know if they'll do that because I think they want to keep them on 5 days, but I see them just being smart about the stressful innings and those outings where could go from 80 to 100 pitches really quick and maybe stop them at 90.
David Aardsma does a terrific job covering Major League Baseball and talking about it, giving us some time here on the show. I always wish I had more time. I don't, but I'm out of it on this Friday. We'll get you on again soon, my friend. Always appreciate it. And again, top velocity out there in Phoenix if you're looking to get some pitching lessons as well from our man David Aardsma. Always appreciate it, my friend.
No, thank you for having me on.
We're coming back. We got a lot more to do on the show. We'll talk some NASCAR. Tino Pattigno drops by to do that next. Good to have you with us on this Friday edition of the show. Thanks to David Aardsma for talking some baseball. Getting me ready for Yankees-Dodgers this weekend. Pumped. Taking it to the streets with NASCAR this weekend. You like that, Tino Pattigno? Yeah? Taking it to... All I need is a little Michael McDonald in the background going, taking it to the streets. We'll get to this week's race in Sonoma coming up here in a couple of minutes. First, Tino does a great job. Of course, SiriusXM NASCAR Radio contributing there, and our NASCAR betting Insider here on the show. All right, give me your thoughts, what we saw last weekend at the Enjoy Illinois 300.
Well, my thoughts were absolute madness when Ryan Blaney ran out of gas and out of the final, going into the final lap there. Austin Cindric gets the victory, and we're talking about Austin Cindric here. Great guy. I've talked to him before. Really, respecting the garage. He's worked his way to the cup level now, racing for Team Penske. But I got to say, when he only had 2 top 15 finishes in the entire year, and then he goes out and wins the race, it's a little bit of craziness going through my mind there. He definitely did deserve to win that race, or at least be in the position to win it, right? He was a top 5 car all day. But when you talk about winning the race, it was between Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney there at the end. They were battling. Christopher Bell gets taken out with an engine issue. So that was also wild. And then Ryan Blaney, that was our pick to win. We had it locked and loaded, and what they didn't have was enough gas to get him to the end, just 1 lap short. And Austin Cindric steals it by a miracle at Gateway. Insane finish there in WWT Raceway.
What happened with Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch?
Oh man, this season for Kyle Busch just keeps getting worse and worse. It seems like he doesn't have any luck on his side.
Getting punched in the face. My God,
punched in the face. He was getting wrecked. He actually went to Indianapolis to test and wrecked his car there too. So this stuff, it's a downhill effect for Kyle Busch right now. And that was just hard racing with Kyle Larson. From looking back on it, they got into each other going into that turn, and then they actually, the buildup was with what happened there. They were battling for position, maybe made contact, but then Larson sent it in on the inside of Kyle Busch. Now, if I'm the A car, I'm lifting a little bit, and that's what Denny Hamlin said on his podcast. He commented on this too, where you're racing for a position, you're both racing hard, but he didn't think Kyle Busch gave Kyle Larson enough room in that instance, which why would he if they're, already had made contact before that. And then they both get taken out, but Larson rebounds for a top 10 finish and Busch gets taken out of the race.
Yeah, and it's got to be getting frustrating for Kyle Busch, who, while he talks about the fact that it's about the fact that he's had at least one win every year for the last umpteen years, it also has to be getting interesting in terms of, is he going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, too, it's looking like with him being in the bubble, right? It's him, Joey Logano. They're all fighting for position there to get Chris Buescher as well. And Buescher's been one of the guys that is up front trying to go for wins that we've seen recently this season. So, yeah, if Kyle Busch is going to keep the 20-year winless streak alive, he may need to do so in order to get into the playoffs, like you mentioned.
All right, let's talk about Sonoma. As I said, we're taking it to the streets. I think what you said, 12 turns on this thing, the Sonoma 250. Give us a sense, again, for the guys that don't get to watch NASCAR every week. If there's a race to tune into, this is one of them.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we're going road course racing, so not just left turns, we're going right as well. And there's also steep bankings too, so that's pretty cool to see, the high elevation, and then you go downhill as well for some hard braking turns. 12 turns, like you mentioned, 2 miles long. But what's interesting about this for everyone tuning in is it's going to be a repaved track. So Martin Truex Jr., for example, he's the favorite in this one at plus 600, but the reason is he has 4 wins at this racetrack, and comparing that to the rest of the field, combined, they have 4 victories between Larson, Suarez, Kyle Busch, and others. So to me, Suarez is the guy to look out for, but the character that was built into this track over wear and tear and the advantages that he was able to gain from the old worn-out Sonoma racetrack is completely gone now. It's the same racetrack, but being repaved, will he still have that edge?
It's so funny watching the highlights from last year's race and racers literally crawling into turns. Like, these cars you're used to seeing go 200 miles an hour, and they're just crawling into turns. It's pretty wild. All right, Martin Truex Jr. at 600, Ty Gibbs 750, Tyler Reddick at 1,000, William Byron at 750, Kyle Larson at 750. You mentioned Martin Truex Jr. Give me some directions you're going in terms of the handicapping side.
Well, definitely looking at Ty Gibbs as well. He'll actually be running in the Xfinity Series race that will be on Saturday prior to the Cup Series action on Sunday. And I think that's just good reps for him to continue to get better. And he is one of the best road course drivers in the field already. He is young, it's the second full-time year here, but I think he's got a great shot to win it. He's been up front leading laps in races so far this season. And I think with it also being a repave track, like I mentioned, this could play well into his hands here. Toyotas are the drivers to look out for in this one. In 2023, they led and they scored the most points out of all the manufacturers there and on road courses specifically. Michael McDowell and Chris Buescher, though, those are two Ford drivers that you guys got to keep an eye on in this one. They're already been the best road course racers in the field, much like AJ Allmendinger as well in a Chevy. But with the speed that Ford's now bringing in the second half of this regular season, we were talking about them. Where are they at? Well, they're here now. They've been winning races. They've been leading laps. And with those two drivers there, I think they have a good shot. They're both around 1,400 to win this one. I think they can do it in here.
All right. So real quick, your winner?
Winner's going to be, let's go Chris Buescher.
You go Chris Buescher. I'll go Chalk. I'll go Martin Truex Jr. Tino Pattigno, check him out. SiriusXM NASCAR Radio, contributing there and always hanging out with us. Thanks, Tino.
Thank you.
All right, just about time to wrap things up on this Friday edition of the show. What a week. Great week of shows. Don't forget to catch the weekend edition of Sports Wrap. If it's not on in your area, I don't know what to tell you. Actually, I do. Go and check out the podcast of the show. Everything's there. Daily show. Usually I put the weekend show up, but the daily show is always there. Subscribe on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, you name it. It is the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. I'm not even going to admit that I just forgot the name of the show. It's one of those days. It is the end of the week. Without any further delay, time for some odds. Thankfully, and some ends. Sammy Arnell is here after sitting in the virtual green room for the entire show. So we've got the Stanley Cup final getting started this weekend, and it's Edmonton in Florida. Edmonton is the favorite, the underdog in this series at plus 108. Florida minus 130. Total for games is 5.5. I gotta be honest. I kind of like I love the underdog in both series. I like Dallas, despite what happened on Thursday night. Dallas could not have played worse, by the way. Dallas could not have played worse in game one. They are not going to play that bad for 4 out of 7 games in this series. If Kyrie plays that bad, then we got problems. I know you probably got something.
Well, really quick on that, Jason. Yeah. I just got to add, Boston's also not going to play that well for the entire series. I mean, Kristaps off the bench setting all sorts of records for finals players off the bench. The Celtics setting a record for their lead at the end of the first quarter. And you just saw the way Jaylen Brown was flying around out there. It's not sustainable basketball.
Kyrie was awful.
I don't expect them to do that for the duration of the series. I'm with you, man.
Kyrie was just awful. But let's talk about this. Yeah, he was awful. Let's talk about this series. I like Edmonton to win the series at plus 108. I also like the over at 5.5, but there's a lot of juice there at minus 188. Give me some of the props you like for the series.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet the total games or either of the sides. At the end of the day, though, gun to my head, I'd probably ride with you on that Edmonton series money line. You know me, Jason. I dive into these specials markets, and I've actually got a few for this Stanley Cup final. We're going to go team goals 2+ scored in each game both ways. Play it for the Oilers at plus 240. Play it for the Panthers at plus 225. Unless you think there's a 1-0 game in there somewhere, I personally don't. You're making money on this bet. Personally, I think that each team will score 2+ in each game of the series. I think we're going to get a lot of overs after not having a lot of overs the entire playoffs. We're going to dive into the goalie props as well. It treated us very well in the Eastern Conference Final. We'll go back to it in the Stanley Cup Final. But the other side now, we're going to go to the Western Conference goalkeeper, Stuart Skenes. 20+ saves in each game. I love this number, plus 118 on this. We know that the Panthers love to shoot the puck. This is why we're not touching Bobrovsky, because of how the Oilers shoot the puck. That run and gun offense of Florida. I had my Florida teams confused there for a second. I think they're going to get a lot of shots on Stuart Skenes. I'd even play it up to 25+ saves in every game. That's coming in at plus 710, Jason. So a lot of plus money out there in the series specials. And in terms of the individual game that we've got coming up this weekend, I would honestly just look to Bobrovsky's under saves prop. That is going to be my niche for this series. That is what I'm going to look to bet the most. We know Edmonton does not shoot a lot. I want to see how low the books hang it. I think I'm going to go under in every game.
It's really interesting that despite the fact that they are not the favorite to win the series, Connor McDavid is the favorite to win the Conn Smythe. Yeah, I'm trying to figure that feels like it's kind of, it doesn't feel like it goes together, does it?
No, it doesn't. At the end of the day, you could chalk that up to the series going 7, McDavid winning the Conn Smythe, even though somehow the Panthers come through and win it because they do play more of a team game. Meanwhile, McDavid, obviously the best player in the sport, and it's good for the NHL to give him the Conn Smythe. I don't know. I don't know. See, if Edmonton wins it, McDavid definitely wins it. Yeah. There's no question in my mind, unless Stuart Skenes has a 50-save game.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen. Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. And again, the Stanley Cup Finals will get underway on Saturday night. We'll have it covered throughout the weekend. Something else going on over the weekend, the French Open. Over on the men's side, hats off to Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. They played a hell of a semifinal at Roland Garros on Friday. Alcaraz getting the best of the second-seeded Sinner, the third-seeded Alcaraz winning that in 5 sets. So that sets up one half of the semifinal. One of those guys will, or I should say, Alcaraz will play the winner of the Ruud-Zverev semifinal. We'll have full coverage on Monday of everything that went on over at the Australian Open. And again, Yankees-Red Sox, Yankees-Dodgers this weekend. Sign me up for that, man. Can't wait. Soto or no Soto, sign me up for the Yankees and the Dodgers over the weekend. That's going to do it for us on this Friday edition of Sports Wrap. Busy show today. Thank you to Tino Pattigno, talking NASCAR, giving us some thoughts on everything we could expect to see in Sonoma this weekend. Also, David Aardsma, the former big league reliever. Dom Amore from the Hartford Courant. And Sam, I'm Jason. We'll see you next week.